A lot of you guys may be wondering, watching that Ryan Garcia fight, why didn't Ryan, fight back more? Why didn't he put more of an effort in to try to get at Rolly, close that distance, and try to land his left hook? His infamous left hook was clearly underutilized. His punch output was historically low. Why is that? And I'm trying to tell you guys that there are a multitude of factors that went into why Ryan Garcia fought the way he did, or honestly didn't fight at all the way he did against Rolly Romero. And a big reason is obvious, and that's because of the punching power. And obviously Rolly Romero dropped him and got the respect of Ryan Garcia early, so Ryan was obviously much more cautious. That's a big one, obviously, and you guys know that. But another thing is, interesting is that Ryan Garcia talked about how it felt weird. Not having a crowd felt weird. He was able to hear all these guys like, Shakur Stevenson yelling in the crowd, and it just felt like a sparring match. So he felt like it didn't feel like an actual fight for him, and that's the reason why he didn't perform. And to me that ultimately sounds like an excuse, because at the end of the day, you know what you're getting into, the conditions of how it's going to go. It's not a natural crowd, but part of me does believe Ryan Garcia to an extent. He said that it's because there was no crowd, it's because he could feel like it was a sparring match. That's the reason why he felt weird in there. He didn't feel like he was in an actual fight. And even though it does sound like an excuse, and maybe partially is an excuse at the end of the day, but I feel like that's fair. Ryan Garcia, he's the type of fighter that gets energy off of the crowd. He feeds off of that electric walkout. He almost needs it to really get excited to perform. And I feel like with the lack of that in this unique event where, Riyadh season, the Fatal Fury card, they drove the fighters to the actual event. They had to, so the way it worked was, these fight, I covered the whole fight week. So the way it worked was there was no locker room really. The locker room was obviously in the hotel that they were staying at. And then the hotel would take these fighters, pick them up in a car along with, their coaches in another car, and drive them to Times Square, which was a few blocks away, and then drop them off, as opposed to having these guys do the traditional ring walk, which for certain fighters, they feed off the ring walk. A guy like Ryan Garcia, who's the superstar, they like hearing, his name get announced and they see him walking in, the whole crowd gets excited, and Ryan Garcia feeds off of that. He didn't have that. And that's a big reason why you saw him in there. He looked a little bit confused, like he's not used to it. And ultimately, he didn't throw a lot of punches. There was no crowd there. The fight just seemed weird to him. And that was apparent. But a big reason, like, let's not forget, I'm not going to beat around the bush. He felt that power that he felt against Rolly when they were younger, too. It was the same punch that Rolly landed in the sparring. Ryan got dropped with the same shot this time because they're grown men now. And Rolly Romero is ultimately a stronger individual than Ryan Garcia is. And that's apparent. Like I've been saying, Ryan doesn't really belong at 147. And I understand he says that he can't make 140, but I'm not sure I believe that. So either way, when you're in between weight classes like Ryan Garcia is, you're going to suffer either way. If you go to 147, you're going to be insignificant, in terms of your physique when it comes to your opponent. Rolly was a natural 147 pounder. He actually belongs at 47. Ryan just fought at 47 because he didn't want to cut the extra 7 pounds to get down to 140. I really do doubt that Ryan's not able to get to 140 in my opinion. Like I said, you're going to suffer either way. If you don't want to make 140, you have to deal with the consequences of being a weaker fighter at 147, which Ryan Garcia clearly was against Rolly Romero. So, you could either do that, or you could suck it up and cut the 7 pounds, the extra 7 pounds, get down to 140, and then rehydrate and be strong against other 140 pounders, because you're not going to be strong at 147. You can't deal with the guys at 147. Devin and Ryan shouldn't really be at 147 because there are bigger guys than Jose Ramirez and bigger guys than Rolly Romero. There are guys like Boots Ennis and Brian Norman. Those guys are big 147 pounders ready to go up to 154, and you want to compete with the best at 47, right? If you want to be the best in your division, Ryan Garcia and Devin can't be those guys at 47, at least not until Boots moves up to 154, because they have no chance against Boots. They're too small, and Boots is a natural 47 pounder. He's honestly ready to go to 54. So, Haney, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, those guys should really stay away from 147. Make 140 if you can, because at 147 right now, you don't want to be dealing with those guys. They're too, they're naturally too big. But, that's my thoughts on Ryan Garcia and the reason why he didn't fight back. I think it was a combination of it. He was out of his element. He likes to feed off the crowd, and there really wasn't a crowd there, inside that ring watching, inside the audience around the ring watching him perform. And they were all outside in Times Square where they couldn't really, see or cheer for anything. They couldn't really get to Ryan Garcia and give him that energy that he needed. But ultimately, it sounds crazy, right? Like a walkout, is that impactful? Yeah, I think it is. Ryan loves the walkout. That's his favorite part. If you guys watch any Ryan Garcia fight, like that's the part he feeds off of. That's what gets him excited to fight. He didn't have that, and then ultimately he got off to a lackadaisical start. Got put down by a left hook and then was a little bit more careful because he was out of his element from then on, and Rolly continued to press that action. So, Ryan Garcia didn't get the job done, and, we'll see where he goes from here. But I think Ryan will be back and better as long as it's in an actual arena next time. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you guys agree. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next Nabs boxing video. Peace.